Poor people can't adapt the environment to the animals. They have to adapt their animals to work with the feed, the climate, the disease pressures which they face. Milk prices have almost doubled. The overall commodity situation is hugely changing the rules of the game. And these changes, particularly if you think of the market, they may imply improved opportunities for poor farmers to actually sell because prices are going to be higher. And at the same time, it can also very hard hit the consumers, particularly the poor consumers who spend most of their income on food and a significant part on livestock.
Our interest in UNEP is to extend our work into relating more closely to the kind of research and initiatives that ILRI is focusing on in terms of sustainable development. 26% of terrestrial surface of our Earth is used for livestock activities. We have to use science and technology more efficiently in order to continue to feed 6.5, 7, 8, 9 billion people on our planet, and also to be able to do it more effectively.
The scientists from the international research organization ILRI say the emphasis on exotic breeds is unlikely to alleviate poverty in the country. NTV reports on how they are doing it and why.
Is that this conference here is really bringing together people who come from both institutional aspects, if you want the breeding aspect, the genetic resource conservation. You need all these different angles in a very difficult context, which is smallholder agriculture.
Omwaka gwa cyenda na mwenda tukatunga umusana mwingi mnonga gwatutera mnonga enzungu zikafa mnonga kandi nyankwe tene zafi.
ILRI is working on trying to understand why particular breeds of cattle have particular characteristics. So we're looking at why, for instance, West African Damas are completely unaffected by a trypanosome infection, and why red Maasai sheep are unaffected by gastrointestinal worms.
A Kenyan research institute is making the push to ensure the world's rare livestock survives. At a conference in Switzerland this week, amid concerns of shrinking genetic diversity on a warming planet.
Climate change changes environments around the world. One of the values of preserving these indigenous species is then you can move these breeds to different environments and gain the value, whether it's drought tolerance for Australia, it's disease tolerance, or it's heat adaptation.
Climate change, isn't it? It's not just about water issues, it's not just about feeds, or it's not just about health, animal genetics. It's about all of these things and more.
The second point I wanted to mention.
ILRI can do two things. One is it can help people to manage risk better, and it really helps us to take a multidisciplinary approach to what are undoubtedly very complex and difficult issues.
We can make major improvements in the efficiency of water use if we look more closely at animal keeping practices. If we can improve the health and the productivity of animals, they will be able to use that water much more effectively. We also have to improve the grazing and watering practices. Overgrazing will deplete the vegetation. Without vegetation, we quickly find that the soil is washed into the rivers, destroying the water reserve. Keeping animals out of the drinking water will go a long way to helping improve the quality of the water.
In this program, ILRI is involved in providing training to these farmers. They buy crossbred improved animals, and together with this, we introduce improved forages. We have also introduced improved feeding system and improved housing for animals.
አሁን ከበፊቱ አሁን በፊት በአመት ነበር ብናገኘው አሁን በየወሩ እናገኛለን።
In ILRI we're looking at product, the milk, the meat, because it's product that the farmer sells at the end of the day. So we're working on forages and in particular forage grasses because it's a very important supplementary feed source, particularly for crossbred animals for dairy.
In Brazil, we have different biomes that imply that you must have different kinds of forages well adapted to each of them. That's why having a gene bank such as ILRI's is so important, not only for a country like Brazil, but for the whole world, in order to improve the sustainability and therefore providing more food for people.
China produces 40% of the pigs worldwide. The objective of the project is to improve the livelihoods of smallholders that have sweet potatoes and pigs as a key component of their system. ILRI will have smaller activities also in Vietnam and Thailand, because the whole idea is to find strategies that are applicable to the whole of Southeast Asia.
We are working in West Africa, East Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Central America, and the Andes. We are working with small-scale pork farmers who depend both on livestock and crops, because in the very early stages of intensification, that's a very efficient way to improve farm productivity and participate in markets.
The idea is to alleviate poverty through dairy in this case. So how you would do that may be helping some small farmers become medium farmers and also offer them the chance to accumulate assets to invest in other options. One of the characteristics of the Kenyan dairy industry, and this is very similar in many other developing countries such as India and so on, is that 80% or more of the marketed milk actually goes through the traditional informal sector. A lot of it is sold just farmer to buyer, but there's actually quite sophisticated kind of raw milk market. Bicycle vendors bring it house to house and things like that.
That is where ILRI positions itself. We recognize the demand side, providing the opportunities, but also realize that we really need to engage with others to deliver the kind of international public goods that could support poor people to benefit from these opportunities.
And which explains a lot of the non-adoption of most of our work.
And for poverty reduction, it's the critical issue.
ILRI is one of the rare institutions in the world where you can find everything from molecular biologists to sociologists working on the same objective.
Over the last 6 months, ILRI has engaged over 50 partners from Asia to develop a collaborative plan to address important livestock issues in that part of the world. The plan involved an electronic consultation and meetings in Bangkok and Kathmandu. This plan focuses on how we work together rather than on the specifics of what we do.
The boundary versus the low pastoral areas where they fit along.
Collaborative, interdisciplinary research is the way of the future. In order to really fill all the gaps in the talents and skills that are needed to solve problems that are as complex as the one that we're working on.
This project came up with an additional component which is called community facilitation, which involved going and meeting the community, the researchers, the policymakers, and even decision makers at various levels of government. Research information was used to try and harmonize coexistence between all these different land uses by giving the right information to the communities.
Amu kingorisho na amgira asiori atua na ambuni amu ninya project adoka kinterutu adol ewu asiori iltung'anak liatua inkishu.
At ILRI, the Innovation Systems perspective is being used to design research strategy and identify points of intervention, and can help governments correct for market failure and system failure. Innovation in livestock systems is particularly important because livestock is an asset of the poor, and where markets are weak, technology takes a long time to develop and spread.
This project has been designed to support the Ethiopian Ministry of Agriculture to enhance smallholder productivity and participation in markets. For example, there is one district which borders Sudan where there is cross-border live animal trade, but no practice of fattening animals. The ministry tried to introduce the technology a few times, but farmers never started doing it. The project started talking with the communities through the offices of agriculture, and the adoption grew in a matter of 2 months.
H5N1 viruses are now widespread in birds around the world.
Indonesia's poised to take over from Vietnam as the country hardest hit by bird flu among people. Christine's trying to discover the extent of the bird flu problem in Java.
Each team in each of their districts is finding 2 outbreaks of the disease a week. That's much more massive than what we were anticipating.
The reason the world is focused on the H5N1 virus is because it already spread very far across 3 continents, Asia, Africa, and right across Europe.
There was a feeling within the wild community that especially the developing world would be unprepared, and so a concept was conceived between ILRI and UAIBA to address that question by designing courses to train laboratory staff how to go along in terms of detecting the disease. Some of our ILRI trainees have been the ones in the forefront in detecting the avian influenza in Ghana and Togo. And in places like Kenya, some of our trainees work in the front line for diagnosis of Rift Valley fever.
Good morning. This is the crop research, part of the crop research laboratory. BECA is an initiative to improve agriculture in Eastern and Central African countries. We employ biotechnologists to tackle major production constraints that are important regionally and that have significance also nationally. For example, drought, animal health is an issue, so vaccine production, diagnostics of diseases.
We emphasize on capacity building, and we do have a number of students that are working in the lab with us so that they can learn the techniques and we can build the capacity in the national agricultural research systems in Africa.
中国和国际家畜研究所的合作，在动物遗传资源方面 we established the CAS ILRI joint laboratory on livestock and forage genetic resource. This is basically focused in China and also Southeast Asia. The joint laboratory provides a platform for the collaboration between China and Asia, and also provide training opportunities for the people from developing countries and learn how to use the biotechnology to do their research.
So the challenge is now addressing a more global ILRI. We have always said that research is particularly important where things are changing, changes happening around the globe, and to really make the best contribution, we need to face the challenge of expanding what we have done in Africa into a global arena.